It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
On a Thursday, good to have you with us. Happy Week 15 in the NFL, because it does start on Thursday night. I know everybody thinks of Sunday, but we got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes of this show. Our friend Matt Verderame drops by. Does a great job on all things NFL. SI.com, insider there. Also, the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. We'll talk with him about all things NFL. Contender, Pretender, Week 15 in the NFL. I've got some interesting ones this week, Sam Yarnell. I have some interesting ones that we'll get to there. Also, some NBA Cup from Wednesday night, which got a little crazy in Houston with the Rockets finally beating the Warriors for the first time since 2020. This is 2020. So we'll hear about that. And Steve Kerr was all fired up. So we'll tell you why he was in a bad mood. And boy, MLB free agency has been fun. The winter meetings end, but there is still a lot of free agency left to talk about. We'll have your Thursday night football handicapping as well. But Sam Yarnell, everybody thought it was kind of, yeah, right. Bill Belichick's going to go and coach the North Carolina football program. Come on. Well, it looks like Bill Belichick's going to go and coach the North Carolina football program. Now, count me as a skeptic or a cynic or a combination of the two. I still think he could accept this job. And in this offseason, if the right NFL team came calling, I could absolutely see him bolting. Remember, this is the guy that quit the Jets before he ever coached a game with the Jets. Hashtag just saying. I could see him like taking this job with North Carolina. An NFL team comes calling and he's like, you meant Steve Belichick's going to coach the team, not Bill Belichick. Yeah, that's what I meant, Sam. But be that as it may, at the moment, we're talking about Bill Belichick coaching at North Carolina next year. Color me shocked.
Jason Page, you and I have been doing this show a while. We've been doing this show over a year at this point.
Yes. Cheers.
How many times have you and I on these very airwaves, I know the answer, I'm just asking you for effect, talked about the University of North Carolina's football program? Once.
Well, yeah. Okay.
One time.
Okay.
15 months of doing this show together, we have talked about the UNC football program one time. And here's why it's the smartest investment that the University of North Carolina could have made, maybe since Michael Jordan. You and I are going to talk about North Carolina football from today, December 12th, 2024, all the way through December 12th, 2025, as the regular season next year concludes in Bill Belichick's first year as the UNC head football coach. And what are we going to do between that? We're going to talk about this team every week of the regular season, because even when they're playing Appalachian State, we're still going to want to know how Bill Belichick's team did. This was truly an investment wise beyond its years. And when we make the comparisons to the NFL, yeah, like obviously at any point he could bolt. I think that you and I understand the business of football well enough to know that these people's careers are not run by themselves. They're run by people who they hire to run their careers. And there's no way that Bill Belichick's representation did not reach out to every front office where there could potentially be a head coaching candidacy this offseason and say, hey, he's really thinking about this. Tell me now if he shouldn't in case you're going to consider him. Yes. And I think the answers they got back were, more power to you. You're going to get way more money there than anyone in the NFL is right
Sam,
now.
You beat me to it, because that's exactly my thought. They have to have enough knowledge to know that nobody's coming, that nobody's knocking on the door saying, we want Bill Belichick as our head coach in the NFL next year, which is, as much as we can talk about what this means for North Carolina, it is stunning that not one team had already made some sort of overture to Bill Belichick and his camp that they wanted him to be the head coach. He would have taken any job. And this just goes to show you that he really does want to coach, that he's going to go and take the North Carolina job, where I don't get it. And as much as you want to say, and I guess I'll disagree with you a little bit here, as much as you're going to want to say Bill Belichick to North Carolina means we're going to talk about them a lot, I can't compare it to like Deion Sanders taking Colorado, because Deion Sanders is bombastic. Deion Sanders is loud. He is the rah-rah cheerleader type. He's billboard guy. Bill Belichick's not that guy. Bill Belichick's hold on. Bill Belichick's not the guy that's going to have a quote every single week, or say he has to be called Coach Prime, or wear sunglasses indoors, or a cowboy hat at the podium.
Or put his players' handles on the back of their practice jersey. You're
exactly. Right. So I don't know how much, once you get beyond the initial shock, and when we get into college football season, unless they're winning a lot, and it takes years to develop a program, there's so many aspects of this beyond the fact that you got rid of a 74-year-old coach to hire a 73-year-old coach. There's so many aspects of this I don't understand.
I get it. And I think that the Deion comparisons are going to be drawn left and right, and they're fair, right? It's probably the most comparable thing we've seen in recent memory. But here's why I think the Bill Belichick thing is so much different and more sustainable than the Deion Sanders thing. Deion Sanders, like you said, Jason, is a loud mouth who does flagrant things and coaches a mediocre football team. Bill Belichick has a legacy of winning. Wherever Bill Belichick has gone, whatever role he's been in, he has been successful at it. And quite frankly, in terms of special teams coordinators and in terms of head coaches, we think of him as a top 5 hands down of all time, no matter what. So I think that legacy will carry more with it than the Deion thing does, which is why I think that this UNC team, especially now getting into the nitty-gritty of the football, in an ACC conference that's been really weak lately, talk about Florida State, talk about the letdown of Clemson over the last couple of years, even though they had a strong finish this year. This is a conference where he can go in, put his foot down. SMU just won this conference. Who's to say UNC can't win it next year?
Yeah, I think that's fair. It'll be fun to watch. He's talking about creating a pipeline to the NFL. I mean, pipelines take time to build. The time part of this is fascinating. In it for the long haul, I need to be convinced. We're coming back with more Sports Wrap. Matt Verderame, SI.com NFL Insider, will join us for a couple of segments. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. Happy Week 15 in the NFL. It gets started on Thursday night. Let's talk some NFL. It feels like it's been a few weeks since we spoke to Matt Verderame of SI and host of the Matt Verderame Show over on Patreon. It's been a few weeks. How are you? I know you're struggling with your voice. Let's let people know in case they hear Matt talk and they're like, "What's wrong with Matt?"
A little laryngitis, I think, is connection to a cold. But I'm otherwise fine. I have a voice now, which is better than 2 days ago. So we're getting somewhere. But I'm very much looking forward to this slate of games this week. I think they're maybe the best we've had all year long.
Well, before we get to those, and we got a little time here, I want to get your thoughts on Bill Belichick to North Carolina. We were talking about in the opening segment what it sort of means, is it the clearest indication we can have that he was talking to NFL teams and they just weren't talking back?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. He's 72, I
72,
believe.
73,
yeah. I think it's hard to convince an NFL team that you're the best option at that age. It's just, how long are you going to be around for? Most of these teams that have coaching openings, they need somebody to rebuild the whole team. Like, you're not going to be there for 2 years and be gone. So I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is a lot of these teams now want these younger, hotshot, offensive-minded coaches. Belichick is not those things. And I think in college, he sees the opportunity that he's going to be the judge, jury, and executioner in a way that he was not going to be at the NFL level again. So I think it's a unique thing. I did not expect it. I also think it's kind of interesting. And I'm much more interested in how this is going to play out than I would have been if he went and became the coach of the Giants, for example. Just because it's so out of the box. It's like if Andy Reid in 5 years went and coached BYU, right? It's just like, all right, let's see how this plays out. Like, that's how I feel.
I'm always a bit cynical, or even skeptical. Sometimes a little of both when I see this, because there's still a part of me that's like, all right, until he's on the sideline actually coaching for him, if somebody comes to him with a really good offer in this offseason, could he bolt from UNC and just hand it to his son and say, oh, you won't have me, but you could have my son? Like, I still wonder, like, does this mean he actually talked to the Cowboys and Jerry Jones was like, yeah, no, you're not going to be the guy? Like, that's what I'm trying to kind of wrap my arms around is he has to have some indication that they're not coming.
I think that's probably true. I think that's probably true. This is Bill Belichick, right? He does his homework. He knows what he's doing. I would expect that, yeah, he probably read the room and talked to some people in that room and said, okay, this is probably where this thing's going to go. Now, my question with Belichick in North Carolina is how long does he stay there? Like, I just can't picture Bill going into some kid's house.
Exactly.
And, in Jacksonville. Listen, we don't need you, but we'd like to have you. Let us know. I just can't. But you know what? I've also learned, like, maybe there's another side to him. There are different sides to people. Yeah. And I will tell you, and I've been told this many times over the year, he's one of the funniest people you'll ever meet.
Yes.
Like, he has a great personality. And you would never think that if you just were a fan watching, press conferences, right? Like, he's the polar opposite. But he's actually a very engaging person. So I wonder, if he's a little bit refreshed by just a different pace. In my head, all I keep picturing is like turning on the ACC network and there's Bill Belichick coaching in Wake Forest. And it's just it's very jarring. There's something very jarring about that.
It's very true.
But I look forward to it.
Patrick Mahomes I was thinking about Pat McAfee because that's where I see Belichick sometimes come on, and he is such that different character. Patrick Mahomes isn't happy. The Chiefs got to play 3 games in 11 days. I'm sure the Steelers aren't very happy either.
Right.
The NFL could talk player safety all it wants. This is a joke, having teams play 3 games in 11 days, Matt.
Yeah. Well, I hear. So I have nothing to add to that because I agree with you. But here's a thought that could be very interesting. And boy, if this happens, the NFL is going to be really pissed off. The Chiefs are up 2 games in the AFC race right now for the number 1 seed.
I think I know where you're going.
Okay, they play Cleveland this weekend. Mm-hmm. Now, the Chiefs are not guaranteed to beat anybody the way the Chiefs play, but they play Cleveland. The Bills are at Detroit. The Steelers are at Philadelphia. Could both lose those games. If the Chiefs win and the Bills lose and the Steelers lose, the Chiefs can wrap up the 1 seed December 21st at home against the Texans team that the Chiefs should probably beat. And if that happens, I would bet you there's a very, very good chance the Chiefs will rest all their starters on Christmas Day, and Netflix and the NFL are going to combine to completely lose their minds. Yeah. Because if you're the Chiefs, why play that game? Who cares?
Yeah.
You're the 1 seed. It doesn't matter to you. And then you don't have to have all this stuff about playing 3 games in 11 days. And you can play half of the game against Denver in week 18 and go to the playoffs. And I'm telling you, if they clinch the 1 seed before that game, I think you're getting Carson Wentz on Christmas. And the Chiefs are just going to lay down like dogs in that game. And I think they're going to send a message doing it. The NFL better pray that situation does not bear out. Because I think if it does, I think they're going to be watching Carson Wentz while the snow falls on Christmas.
Is there anything you can compare this to, a team that has played this many close games, and gone on to win a Super Bowl that has just not been dominant, but has played a lot of close games and won a lot of close games and then gone on to win a Super Bowl? Is there anything you could think of? Because I was, of all places, I was sitting in the shower today. I was like, I can't come up with a team. I only got about 35 seconds here for you to come up with one. I can't come up with a team that's done what they are doing and then gone on and won a Super Bowl.
No, probably not. I mean, the 2011 Giants had a negative point differential and won the Super Bowl. So they're kind of there. The 79 Steelers, I believe, have the worst turnover differential in football. Or I think at least are the most turnovers.
Yeah.
And one. But yeah, the 03-04 Pats had a million close games, but they did over 2 years.
Yeah.
No, this is pretty unique.
Yeah.
Pretty unique.
Matt Verderame's hanging out with us. We'll come back and get to a little more with him. Hopefully his voice makes it. And we'll get a few more questions in with him. Matt Verderame, SI, does a great job on the NFL there. Also the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. We're coming back. All right, let's take it to segment 3 and another segment with our friend Matt Verderame, SI.com, NFL Insider. Also does a great job with the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. Boy, this has been a season like no other for the Niners. When you look at the injuries that this team has had to try and overcome, the mere fact they're even still in this thing in the NFC West is pretty remarkable. But let's just say that given everything that's taken place, they wind up not making the playoffs. Do you just run it back next year, knowing that this window is sort of closing? Do you just run it back next year with this same group and say, hey, man, it was just bad luck this year. We got bit by the injury bug. It does happen sometimes. Where do you go if you're the Niners? I
would not just run it back. Now, I'm not one of these people who's lost my mind and thinks they should fire Kyle Shanahan. Like that's to me just insane. But I think you probably have to trade Debo. And I think you probably have to look at the defense and start thinking about, okay, well, are you going to look? You just paid Lenore a ton of money. Are you going to pay Travaris Ward too? Because Travaris Ward now is getting into that age 30 area, right? Like, probably not going to pay him. The defensive line, you've got Bosa. Hargrave, see a piece you're going to keep moving forward. Do you get a little younger there, a little bit cheaper? I think you've got to factor in all these things. Dre Greenlaw, is he there in 2025? I think, Warner is your centerpiece in the defense. Obviously, he'll be there. But look, I think for the Niners, you got to pare down some of these salaries, some of these roster spots. And I think, when you just look at them, they just have, they've been able to do it because for the longest time, they've had cheap quarterback play, and they still have that. They still have that, and they can still have it going forward for a few more years if they want it. But at the same point, I just think you do reach a juncture where, are you going to keep just rolling this thing forward? They're going to have to make some choices. They've got a couple free agents on the offensive line. They can. Hufanga is another guy. They got to figure it out. But they could run it back if they want to for the most part. But I think they should probably be a little proactive in some areas.
What is your overall takeaway now that we've had a few days to let this Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown situation sort of play out? A lot of it in the media. What does it say about Nick Sirianni, sort of the cohesiveness of this team? I can't recall a team having as much success win-loss-wise as this Eagles team is having, but still having this kind of strife, this kind of stress and strife that has to wear on you as a team throughout the course of a season.
Yeah, it does. And I would say the common thread the last couple of years has been Jalen Hurts. This year it's with A.J. Brown. Last year it was Sirianni. Of course, Sirianni is also a common thread in the sense that Sirianni has beef with the entire city of Philadelphia. Who doesn't? But look, I think when as a coach, when you are that emotional and you are that bombastic, it allows everybody else to kind of have permission to do that too. And, it was shocking that Brandon Graham kind of just let everything out in public. You don't see guys do that. That's against code. You don't talk about business outside of the locker room. I'll say this though, like that's obviously been going on for a while, and they're rolling. They're 11-2. So it's not like it's hurting them. They're winning, but it's certainly not the headline that you want as you were getting ready to play Pittsburgh.
Would an early postseason exit mean changes there?
I don't think so, just because they've had such a good year. I don't think so. I think Sirianni's probably safe no matter what at this point, barring they just completely fall apart the last month of the year.
Right. I'm talking postseason. If they went out, if they were one and done.
Right. I mean, if they're the 2 seed and they lose to like Washington, maybe, but in the NFC is going to be really interesting because, you got, let's say the Packers are the 6 seed and, the Vikings are the 5 seed. Like those teams are going to be favored to win as wild card teams in their opening round games. Like there's a real world here where like Detroit's got to play like Green Bay coming out of the bye week. Like it's with the AFC, it feels like more chalky. That'd be very interesting. But yeah, I think Sirianni's probably safe for next year unless they just fall apart.
Does Shedeur Sanders make sense with the New York Giants?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think he does. Like it's him and it's Cam Ward. It's really not anybody else at this point. If you talk to people around the league in terms of quarterbacks coming out. The other thing is to look. Now, I will say this with Shedeur Sanders, and this is not really about Shedeur, to be fair to him. You better be ready for the circus because Dion is Dion. And you're going to get every thought that Deion Sanders has every second publicly in your face, constantly telling you what you should be doing, what you're not doing, what's wrong, what's happening. You need a strong owner and a strong GM and a strong coach who's basically willing to tell Dion, like, hey, man, go coach Colorado. Like, don't care. Because he is going to be involved constantly in everything that happens. That said, I think Shedeur Sanders is an incredible talent. And if you're the Giants, incredible talent at quarterback sounds great.
I want to say while you cough your brains out over there, to finish this conversation, I think it is very intriguing that we are week 15 in the NFL, and we did not coordinate this. Pull up your shirt just a little bit, and don't take it off or anything, but you are wearing an Oakland A's shirt, and I am wearing my Yankees shirt on December 12th. It just says a little bit about us, doesn't it?
I have a deep, passionate hatred of the A's. After being a fan of them for 25 years because I hate John Fisher. I appreciate that he spent $68 million on Luis Severino. I can't wish enough bad things on the man. Not on Severino, on Fisher. Yeah, good times.
Yep. $1.75 billion stadium coming right here to Vegas, baby.
Yes.
Might be worth hanging around here for a few years for that.
We'll see.
Matt Verderame does a great job on SI. Check out his work there on the NFL. Also, the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. Hey, feel better, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
We're coming back. All right, coming up in 10 minutes, something to consider. Revolving around the NBA Cup. I'm not saying the sponsor because they're not paying me. So it's just the NBA Cup. If that sponsor wants to be mentioned, they can pay us. There. And they can give me a business class seat when I fly to Singapore. Because they have a really good business class. But we're not saying who. Sam Yarnell, as we welcome you back in after chatting with our friend Matt Verderame. All right, Contender, Pretender, Week 15 in the NFL. And as I was saying to Sam off the air, we do Contender Pretender every week. And you got to start getting creative as we continue to get later and later into the season, because otherwise every week we just have the same contenders and the same pretenders, especially as you whittle the field down, with just a handful of teams in each conference sort of vying for remaining playoff positions. So Sam Yarnell, week 15 in the NFL, Contender Pretender. I will lead it off this week for a change. And give you my contenders. My first contender is a contender to win the Super Bowl. And now we've got to start putting them in, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. I think they, at this point, have moved themselves back into that conversation when you consider just how wide open things are in this league this year, and how it feels like almost anybody that makes the playoffs, sans a team or two, can contend for a Super Bowl. I like the Minnesota Vikings as a Super Bowl contender. Right now, they are 17-1 to win it all, by the way. If you're looking for some value, I just wrote a column on the need for betting education. I would tell you, looking for a little value, how about the Minnesota Vikings at 17-1? They are my first contender. The Philadelphia Eagles, contenders for a new head coach next year. And here's the scenario. They go out one and done after probably getting a bye to start the postseason. If they are one and done in this postseason, I don't care what their regular season record is. If they're one and done, I think they're looking for a new head coach, because clearly this thing is off the rails. And they always say the fish rots from the head down. And that's Nick Sirianni. Everything else you see going on with this organization, all the strife between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, and every year it feels like there's something different. Nick Sirianni barking at fans, barking at the media. It all starts with Nick Sirianni. And remember, this is a team that thought about getting rid of him last year. So if they go one and done in this postseason, I think the Eagles are contenders for a new head coach. The Los Angeles Rams, Sam Yarnell, contenders for a Super Bowl. You heard me right. If they get in, they could win. I have confidence in that head coach and that quarterback. Give me that combination, again, in a wide open field. Would you bet against the Rams? I wouldn't. I'd give them a fighting chance. I think there's some value there on the Rams. By the way, speaking of the Rams, I had the number offhand on the Vikings. The number on the Rams, 55-1 to win it all. Sprinkle, maybe. Pretenders, Sam Yarnell. The Cowboys, pretenders for anything representing a respectable NFL organization at this point. How much sloppiness have we seen over just the last few weeks, let alone the last couple of years with this organization? This is not a reputable NFL organization at this point. And Jerry Jones can't fire me, so I could say it. Jerry, it's time to let it go, man. It's time to bring somebody in that could actually make qualified decisions, respected decisions, informed decisions on the best direction to take this franchise at this point. The Cowboys, pretenders for anything representing a respectable NFL organization. The New York Giants, Sam Yarnell, they are pretenders. Pretending to do anything other than get the top pick in the NFL draft. They are inventing new ways to win every week. And it's funny, if you go and look at the Giants and just look down the table at their loss, they're all close games. You can't find a way to win one or two of these close games? Come on. You don't have any of us fooled. We know the Giants are pretenders for anything other than a team trying to get the top overall pick. The Baltimore Ravens, Sam Yarnell, they are Super Bowl pretenders. And here's why. There is no excuse. I mean, the Chiefs find ways to win games every week. They have one loss, and you could argue they haven't even played anything close to their best football. How are the Baltimore Ravens 8-5? This is a team that we looked at. This should be the best offense in the league. All of these great accolades we throw. Lamar Jackson, MVP, blah, 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 blah. They're 8-5. How can I take you seriously as a Super Bowl contender when you're 8-5 with that level of talent on that team? The Baltimore Ravens are pretenders to win the Super Bowl, Sam Yarnell. What do you got for me?
All right. I got a minute left, so I got to fly through
my God,
these.
I'm the
My
worst.
contenders. My first contender is a contender to be the number 2 hire in this coaching cycle. It's Mike Vrabel. Ben Johnson will be number 1. Mike Vrabel will be number 2. My next contender to win the Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders sweepstakes. It's the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are contenders to win the Sanders sweepstakes. My last contender is Bryce Young. Bryce Young is a contender to be a franchise quarterback in Carolina. He's shown you it over the last 3 weeks. My pretenders in the NFL. This is a season-long discussion and the culmination of it all. My pretender for the worst division in football anymore, it's the NFC North. My entire childhood we called this division the worst division in football. Not anymore, people. They're going to have 3 playoff teams in that division this year. My next pretender, Kirk Cousins, to be a future Pro Bowl quarterback. Kirk, you're a Hall of Fame bag getter. The best moments of your career are behind you, brother. You got to let it go. It's Michael Penix time. And my last pretender is the bust narrative for Baker Mayfield. We got to stop with that. That is done and gone.
Can I add one more pretender? Me, as a host of a show who's able to manage the clock. I am so sorry. We're coming back. All right, welcome back on this Thursday. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes with a little bit of baseball and some Thursday night NFL handicapping. Sam Yarnell, something to consider. Take into consideration that the semifinals and finals of the NBA Cup, not nearly as good with the Knicks and Warriors both out after Wednesday night's action. Kudos to the Houston Rockets, man. Ime Udoka has done a terrific job. It's not often where you get a situation where, like the Celtics were in, where they let go of Udoka because of the HR look of it and everything that was going on there. And they hired Joe Mazzulla, and Mazzulla winds up winning an NBA championship. And then Udoka goes to Houston and is having success with the Rockets. There's no question he has rebuilt this program, and he's done so in his image. Rockets beat the Warriors last night for the first time since pre-COVID, 2020, Sam Yarnell. They get a win last night. It was a rock fight. Not a lot of scoring. If you went to go see a high-scoring game, you didn't get it. But if you're a Rockets fan, you're thrilled. They find a way to get a victory late. Now, we should mention that Steve Kerr was a little upset. If you watch the video on the screen here, you will see why. There was a scrum, a loose ball situation where you get a foul called on the Warriors after Stephen Curry misses a three-pointer. He was only 3 of 9 shooting, by the way, from beyond the arc in the game. The headline there is sort of covering for Curry, who had a good look to try and give them the lead late. But there's the scrum. You get the foul call. And Steve Kerr after the game, because this foul led to 2 Houston Rockets free throws, which gave them the lead, which they hang on to win. Steve Kerr after the game, losing his mind. Take a listen for yourself.
I've never seen a loose ball foul on a jump ball situation 80 feet from the basket with the game on the line. I've never seen that. I think I saw it in college one time, 30 years ago. Never seen it in the NBA. That is, unconscionable. I don't even understand what just happened. Loose ball, diving on the floor, 80 feet from the basket, and you're going to give a guy 2 free throws to decide the game when people are scrambling for the ball. Just give them a timeout. Give them a timeout and let the players decide the game. That's how you officiate, especially because the game was a complete wrestling match. They didn't call anything. Steph Curry got hit on the elbow, plain as day on a jump shot. Just clubbed right on there, no call. So you've established you're just not going to call anything throughout the game.
Can I just say this, by the way? What decided the game wasn't that. What decided the game was Stephen Curry, just a few seconds prior to that, missing a wide open 3 to take the lead. And I get it. You got to cover for your guys and you got to draw attention away. to pretend this has never been called before. I mean, come on, give me a break, Sam.
Let me just fun you for a second.
Sure.
Let's pretend that Steve Kerr's right, and this did cost his team the game. Just pretend, just for the sake of argument's sake. The first thing I'm drawn to, Steve Kerr, you're incorrect about something that came out of your own mouth about yourself, that you've never seen anything like this in the NBA. For those of you who don't know the history of Steve Kerr or the history of the NBA, between the years 1986 and 1992, the Detroit Pistons were known as the Bad Boy Pistons. The Detroit Pistons were known for playing rock fight basketball, getting into fights on the court, diving at loose balls while people were trying to call timeouts. Exactly what happened last night. Now you may be thinking, oh, I remember Steve Kerr from those MJ teams in Chicago where he won all those rings and stuff. Steve Kerr played 209 games in the NBA during that run that the Bad Boy Pistons were on. You're going to tell me that he never once in those 209 games played against the Bad Boy Pistons? You're wrong, considering for 3 of those 4 years, he was in the same conference as them. All right, now that that's out of the way, Steve Kerr, you know ball. We all can agree that you know ball. You should know that your team is never going to get the benefit of this call. As a matter of fact, your team has earned the doubt of this call for employing a man named Draymond Green to sit on the bench for the last 13 years. Now, throughout his career, I went and looked this up, Draymond Green has been fined 216 times. He's been suspended 6 times. He's lost over $3.2 million in pay between fines and suspensions, again, throughout his 13-year career in the NBA, every season of which has been played in a Golden State Warriors uniform. Over the last decade and a half, this team, because of their own doing, has lost the benefit in any of these circumstances. I'm sorry, Steve Kerr. Sure, that call lost you the game last night, but it also won you 6 championships. So I don't want to hear it. You employ Draymond Green. There are going to be benefits, but there are going to be a lot of losses. This was one of those losses.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a 50-50 ball. It's a 50-50 call. To me,
I'm with you, by the way. I don't think it loses them the game. Steph Curry throwing up that brick with no one in his face did.
And then they had another, and then they get another shot with Brandon Podziemski, getting an open look for 3, which gets blocked, and there's some question, was there contact, this and that. I mean, come on. You scored 89 points, for crying out loud. Do better than 89 points. Or 90 points on the road in Houston. And look, I was singing the praises of this Warriors team the way they came out of the gate. The West is going to be interesting, man. After you get past the top 3 teams, there's a whole jumbled mess that includes everybody. Odds and ends are next.
And maybe Jimmy Butler.
Welcome back. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby. Before we do, a reminder, check out the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, YouTube podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, whole bunch more. Anywhere you get your podcasts, go and find it. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page Substack. Sam, can we get some picks up there tonight? Can you throw some picks our way tonight?
Yeah, man. Not my fault. I mean, we've been so hot on the show itself. Who needs picks elsewhere? But yeah, we'll get them spread around. The Substack,
go and check it out. Subscribe. It's free. Highlights from the show, clips from the show, news from the show, all things Sports Wrap all the time on Substack. All right, without any further delay, Sam Yarnell, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Corbin Burns, where will he end up? It sounds like Toronto may wind up with the highest bid for the now former Oriole pitcher. Because we know the Orioles. By the way, what are the Orioles doing? I see so many of their fans losing their minds right now down there about the fact that they're not doing anything. I mean, what is Baltimore doing to improve this team? People are leaving. I don't see them replacing any of them. Just throwing that out there.
Well, So this is my thing on the Orioles, and obviously being so connected to DC, the Baltimore narrative fits its way into there somehow sometimes. Here's my thing on the Orioles. As quickly as people are to say, oh, everyone's gone, they're not making a move. First of all, people, it's December 12th. Like, we know MLB free agency. This is not something that is normally solved by December 12th. And quite frankly, just because one guy signed a $760 billion contract somewhere doesn't mean that everyone's going to sign the next day. There was an article, an editorial, by the way. It's not, I shouldn't call it an article. There's an editorial published in a Baltimore paper overnight that talked about how the Orioles ownership had told the GM that spending was not in the cards this offseason. I can tell you, based on things that I've heard from much closer to the organization than that article, that is completely and patently false. Now, I will say this. As quickly as we are to say that Corbin Burns is going to the Yankees or the Blue Jays, or these actually probably not the Yankees now after their big splash, but as quickly as we're to say that he's going to the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the other places that need pitching, I do not think the Orioles are out of this sweepstakes yet. And we know with their new ownership group that they have the money to go in on these big ticket free agents. We also know that this ownership group, if you look at the way that they're running the Philadelphia 76ers, in free agency, as much as you can in the NBA, like to fly under the radar. This is not a team that likes to be not an ownership group that likes to be very public with how much money they're offering to pay players, which I think in certain areas has been strategically very smart, and in other areas, Tobias Harris, I'm looking at you, has been very, very, very dumb. All of that said, I'm not counting the Orioles out of the sweepstakes. I still think that they could bring back Santander if they really needed to. I'm not worried about the Orioles. I am with you, though. The Blue Jays, for me, on these sweepstakes kind of guys, are always going to be the favorite just because of how much money they have.
Garrett Crochet to the Red Sox. Red Sox are putting up a formidable rotation right now, and there's talk they might still be in on Burns, but it sounds like Crochet is their big splash here in this offseason.
Yeah, and I'm going to blow through some of my picks time with this, but I don't care. The return for this was interesting because we all expected the return to be underwhelming because it's the Chicago White Sox and they're handcuffed. They don't really have a leg to stand on in these negotiations. They had to get rid of Crochet. But they got back Kyle Teal, who's been a guy who I've followed since he was a catcher at UVA, and he's a very talented young prospect, along with 3 other guys. But I was impressed that the White Sox were able to salvage what they could out of the Red Sox organization.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, odds and ends. Some odds for your Thursday Night Football spectacular in Santa Clara tonight. The Niners -3 against the Rams, who just beat the Bills. Plus 120 if you're looking at the money line for the Rams, -142. The Niners, 49.5 is your total, Sam Yarnell. What you got?
Well, as Jason alluded to earlier, the picks on the Substack have gotten slower these days, and the reason for that is because, as any good gambler knows, our positions that we got into preseason have become much louder late in the season, so it becomes a lot harder to bet game by game when you've got season-long positions that you can't fade, which is exactly where I've come to on the side in this game. I'm on the Rams to win this division at 20-1, and quite frankly, I have no interest in taking the Rams or the Niners, Rams with the points, Niners without the points, because I don't know how this game's going to play out. Safely, I would do a teaser with the it would be what, Niners money line and probably over 46.5, but I don't even really trust that. I think that both of these teams have suffered so many injuries throughout the season, Jason Page. They're all at their third string at multiple positions. All of that said, George Kittle over receptions feels easy to me tonight.
And he's been really good on his props all year if you've taken the overs, because he has certainly been one of the big targets for Brock Purdy. I'll give you one. I like the over. I like over 49.5 for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. That would be the one thing. I'm not comfortable picking a side, but I would be comfortable picking the over at 49.5 tonight for the Rams and the Niners. And all we root for is a good game for Al Michaels so that he's nice and excited and juiced up and amped up alongside Kirk Herbstreit. And that's going to do it for us on this. I don't know. I just root for good games for Al Michaels. He is an American treasure. Love that guy. It's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you to Matt Verderame. Oh, look. I accidentally put the wrong thing on the screen. Thank you, Matt Verderame. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. We're back here on Friday. Page versus the Prince, NFL picks, Robert Lital. We'll see you all then.